Meanwhile, you've been able to grow that account instead of whittling it down from paying for it with medical expenses over the years. It just use it to grow. And now the money that's coming back to pay you back, yes, there's been inflation, I understand, but still that could be a very, very hefty sum that's coming to you tax-free. HSAs, health savings account. Last podcast, we talked about these a lot, how amazing they are, how they're the only IRS program that I think is any good in order to help you with your money. But one of the things we didn't talk about last time was how, and this is new to me this year, I had somebody disclose this to me and I was like, wow, this makes HSAs the greatest thing ever. So if you weren't with us in the last podcast, a health savings account is a way to take money that you make, dump it into this so-called HSA account, health savings account. When you do that, you get a credit, which means it's tax-free. And so last year, 2024, you could put up to $4,150 into your HSA, and that comes off your taxes, which is super cool. Other people can put money into your HSA, and that come off your taxes. Not off their taxes, but it comes off your taxes, which is super, super cool. Oh, you bought one in the 90s? Oh, good. I love. Yeah, they do come back, by the way, Susan, if you've never figured it out. I'd love to do a podcast. I'd love to go out in a park one day and just say, here's how you do it. So the HSA, you put money in, but you have to spend the stuff in the account on medical expenses, which is fine. That's why it's called the health savings account. But the money that you make by investing in stocks or whatever you do in that is also tax-free, no capital gains, which is pretty cool. And then once you get to the age of 65, then you can actually pull the money out of that to do anything that isn't medical wise. And then all you have to do is pay the tax. It's sort of like a combination of a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. You don't have to pay the money on the income that you make. And it's pretty cool. And this is if you spend the money on medical expenses. But what happens if you have an HSA and you have medical expenses? Cool. But you don't spend the money through your HSA. Like they'll literally give you a debit card. So my HSA, I have a debit card through this particular account. And I'll go use the debit card of the doctor and they know what it is. Like, is this an HSA? Yes. Okay. So they know they have to give you a receipt because you have to keep the receipts. So you use the debit card. But what if you show up to get your teeth cleaned or whatever that is, and you use your own regular personal credit card? You don't use your HSA. Well, obviously there's no tax benefit for you that way because you have to pay with your own money and you have to pay tax on the money that you use to buy the medical services. And your HSA doesn't pay. But if you keep your receipt, you can get a reimbursement later.
Oh, that's great.
That's nice. But think this through. See, we're investing money tax-free in stocks or crypto stocks or whatever you've got in your HSA brokerage. You're investing money. And there's no tax on the money that you're making, no capital gains tax, no income tax. So if you use your HSA as an investment account, hear me, people, hear me. If you use it as an investment account and it just builds and builds and builds tax-free, builds and builds and builds tax-free. Look, wealth happens when there's no tax. You can't mess it up if you don't have tax. You will get wealthy. There's no tax because you keep your money. So you're going to build and build and build this account. And then hopefully if you're investing well, even if you just dump it in the S&P and leave it there, just keep putting the S&P 500 or the SPY chart, whatever, it's just going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. 30 years later, you still haven't taken anything out of your HSA. How much money did you spend on medical things in 30 years? 100,000? 200,000? $1 million in 30 years if you had a medical issue? You didn't use your HSA, you kept your receipts, and now 30 years later, or whenever you say you want the reimbursement, you go, I'm taking a reimbursement, and the money comes into your account to reimburse you for the medical expenses that you paid tax-free later. Meanwhile, you've been able to grow that account instead of whittling it down from paying for it with medical expenses over the years. It just use it to grow. And now the money that's coming back to pay you back, yes, there's been inflation, I understand, but still that could be a very, very hefty sum that's coming to you tax-free.
Wow. I guess I always thought the HSA at the end of the year, if I didn't use it, like it wasn't good at all. Like I thought the money was only for that year allotted?
No, because it's your money. And much unlike an FSA, which stays with your employer, this is yours. This is yours. So if I put $4,150 in and, well, this is really bad math. Let's just say $4,000. If I put $4,000 in my HSA last year and I leave it in the Fidelity account, it's at 5%, just a savings account. At the end of the year, that'll be worth, oh man, 4,000. What's 5%? 4,200 bucks. I didn't pay tax on the $200. I didn't have to risk anything if I didn't want to. And now that account has $4,200 in it. And now I tick over the next year. And let's say I do it again. I put another $4,000 in. Now it's, and I get another 5%. Now it's $8,450. It just keeps growing.
What if I had used it last year to buy my Bitcoin, right? I'm a very new investor kind of person. So all this is very new information for me. So if I had used my HSA to purchase my Bitcoin, and my Bitcoin account's doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited. Even when it's a little down, I'm still way more up than I was down. So is there a cap at how much money I could have made? Like, for instance, I think my Bitcoin, I'm up like 300 or 400% right today. So is there a cap of how much money I could have made using my HSA money? No.
And crypto's a bit of a hard one because there's not a lot of HSA brokerages that allow you to trade Bitcoin or crypto, but you can, as I have done, invested in crypto stocks, whether it's MSTR or RIOT or BITO. Like, I love BITO because it's doing about 60% a year in dividends that it pays into your account. And so my HSA is up like 100% in the last year, literally up 100%. Because you don't have to do crypto, but sometimes the crypto stocks do not quite as well, but pretty well. There is no limit. So if we're having the rise that we expect, and, my cost average on BITO is like right now, was it like $24, something like this? And BITO goes to 100. I just made 400%. There's no tax.
Wow, this is really good news. That's way better than paying for aspirin.
Way better than paying for aspirin, because you could still use your HSA. And you say, okay, well, I bought all these stocks, but I need to spend some money on medical. So I'm going to sell the stock, which normally creates a capital gain, but not here, not anymore. You sell the stock, you keep your profits, it's tax-free, and now you have cash in the account and you can use your debit card, because you can't use a debit card for stocks. That doesn't really work. So you have to liquidate some of your stocks or your holdings that becomes cash, and then you use your debit card. And the doctors all know what it is. They're like, oh, you need your receipt, and they'll make sure you get that. Don't mess that up. But if you do that, you're lowering your ability to make more money because you're spending it. That's why one of our mentors, Allison Armstrong, when she talks to women about what spending money is like for men, when you spend it as a woman, they don't see, oh, we can have a new jacuzzi and a new deck in the backyard. Won't that be lovely? And it'll only be like, $30,000, $40,000. They hear $180,000 hit to the retirement account. Because over time, if they had left the $40,000 in there, it would grow and then equal $180,000, $200,000. But women don't typically think that way. Not all women. This is just a general idea. We have to think in the future. And I hadn't thought about the ramifications of using a tax-free investment vehicle like an HSA to spend on medical. Don't spend it on medical. So yes, Susan, I saw your comment. Yeah. So later, as long as you have the receipts, if you don't have the receipts, you can't claim it. And we talked about this, I think, in our first session or second session, whatever it was, episode 2, with how you can take pictures of your receipts and then store them indefinitely. So the IRS requires that you keep your records for 3, maybe 4 years, because that's as far back as they can assess you. But if you're doing what I'm talking about, which is I'm putting $4,000, $4,500 a year into an HSA every year, and it's growing by 10, 20, 30, 40, or if you're really good, 50% a year, you're going to have $1 million real fast. And to get that out of there, you're either going to have to pull it out after you're 65 and then pay tax on it, or do what I'm talking about and keep your medical receipts and pull it out as a reimbursement tax-free. And you'll still have money left over because it's been growing this whole time.